I was driving with friends in the canyon. At the time, I don't know how to handle a car. All I did was actually try to focus on building horsepower. And I lost control of the car, and flipped it over, and totaled the car. The funny thing about that car right now is, one person came out and bought it, and later on we met in life, and now we become friends. So they still have parts of my car with them till today. That was almost 30 years ago. I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 14. At 17-year-old, I ran away from home. My first transportation actually was a Honda motorcycle. When I first came to the United States, that was what I used as a transportation. Then later on, I started racing on Willow Spring with my Yamaha FZR 600. So I didn't own my very first car until 1991. I finally saved enough money and bought my first car. It was an Isuzu Stylus, but with a Lotus Tune suspension with a dual overhead cam engines. I bought it because it was cheap. That's the cheapest car with a dual overhead cam engine you can buy. So prior to that, couldn't get access to any cars and couldn't afford it, and I don't have a job. And it wasn't until when I left the family, I started making money on my own, and that's when I really wanted to have a car of my own. I'm Sean Lee. I'm founder of the Purist Group. I drive a 1988 Mazda RX7 Turbo 2 10th anniversary. As I get older, I start building more towards performance-oriented, and I don't know how to build them. I don't know what's the right way to build them. So all I can do is a lot of cosmetic stuff and to make it look more different than other people. The funny thing about it is my very first car I ever built and very performance-oriented was actually a RX7. It's exactly the same as this one. And that was my very first self-built performance car at the time. So this car has a unique past. So this is a 1988 Mazda RX7 Turbo 2. This car was originally belonged to Cody Walker family.
The car was actually in my wife's family. So her grandfather actually purchased the car back in 1989. My name is Cody Walker. I'm the youngest of the Walker siblings.
When Cody's grandfather-in-law went to the dealer, they were just going to buy a B2300 truck.
To pick up a new pickup truck for ranch duty.
And the salesman upsold him an RX-7 and along with a truck.
He ended up buying it. He came home with a truck and this funny little Mazda RX-7.
And pretty much just put very little mileage on there without even driving it.
And they had a basement, so he parked it in there and it sat there for 25 years.
So when he went up to Oregon to meet his wife's family, he actually found this car sitting in the garage under a cover.
No interest in the car, but he bought it and it sat there. And my wife, growing up, she has stories about them playing down in the basement and playing in the car, pretending to drive it. And the years rolled by and nobody ended up getting the car, and it just sat there and it sat there and it sat there for about 25 years.
So he sends me a picture of the car and say, there's this car that's available here, and he wants me to teach him every little thing about this car.
Grandma and Grandpa passed away. It became property of my father-in-law. Also not a car guy, got it running, took it to his garage, where then it sat for 2 years. And I kept bugging my father-in-law. I'm like, what are you gonna do with this? He goes, I don't know what it's worth. I don't know anything about the car. So I call Sean, I'm like, hey, Sean, I think I want to buy this car. I mean, this thing is just perfect.
So when he texted me the mileage, I thought that was a typo because he typed like 1,280 something miles. And I figured with car this age, it's possibly be 128,000 miles. When he started sending me a picture one by one, and I found out this is actually a 1,280 mile car. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Of course, blows his mind, and I start up the car.
The rotary engine can be a little bit tricky. You know, a lot of things you have to watch out for. You just scored probably one of the best barn find in the world. As of today, the car is 1,700 miles.
So it definitely has, its flaws, but it's a really cool car, and the thing runs great. I was going to buy it from my father-in-law, but it had lived this long in a garage, protected from the elements, and I didn't have a garage to put it in. Man, I'm not gonna buy this and then park it in front of my house and put a car cover on it.
He didn't ask me, would I be interested in purchasing this car? And I say, of course, to have a piece of history like this being in my garage. And plus, me and their family are very close friends for years, and also including his brother, Paul.
So we ended up buying it from my father-in-law, trucked it down to Southern California here, and got it totally squared away, got it detailed. I mean, the thing is perfect. It has paper floor mats, it smells brand new, because it's a true time capsule.
So the car comes back, it starts out a little rough, but after a proper tune-up, as you can see, it drives perfect, idles perfect.
You know, it's just kind of it was a car that was just forgotten about. I just left it downstairs in the basement garage and just sat there. It's a real barn find.
At the time, when I first got a car, it just had some old gas in there. We got a car started up right away. It drives perfect. Mechanically, it's never been touched. I drove the car at least 100 miles a year. This car was in the Oregon coast. The air has a lot of salt in there. As you can see, the car was well preserved. There's not a bit of rust in anywhere.
It was a very simple cover that was just on the car, universal cover, but it was totally protected from the elements. Climate control, I mean, it was part of the central air and heat of the house. So it was just like a total baby its entire life. Still has the paper floor mats in it.
Rotary engine has very, very little moving parts and is able to generating high RPMs because the apex seal is very, very thin and very, very fragile. So a lot of people, when they boost up the horsepower or not enough lubrications, the first thing usually go was the apex seal. For the car, this mileage, it probably has the most oil change. So Mazda has a lot of race history based on the rotary engine. The engine itself is very proven in terms of racing. It's a great engine because it's a lot less moving component parts. The other thing about it is actually it burns a lot of fuel. The fuel consumption is pretty crazy. So Mazda discontinued the rotary engine after the RX-8. This is representing back in the late 80s, early 90s Japanese principle on making cars. It's very comfortable, unlike the current GT cars. The funny thing about this car is, so what you feel today is exactly how you will feel owning a SC back in 1988. It's not really about the speed. It's like a time machine. It's like about when you sit in there, you drive it, you go like, wow, this is what being 1988 is all about.
Sean and I are connected through cars. Sean was good friends with my brother Paul, and that was through cars. I grew up around cars because Paul was my brother. And before Paul was a movie star, we would go to the auto shows and all that because my dad was a car guy.
You know, it's like he's my best friend. We talk about cars, play around with cars. Cars is a bonus, but doing the right thing together to help the community, it's the right purpose.